Well, it is almost the year end, and we could not end the year without what might very well be the final ish trip, of course, depending what they might put out in the next week or so, but we'll see. What might be very well the last time we visit Conservative Home, at least this year. Don't worry, we ain't giving up covering the ongoing madness in Conservative Home. That's for sure. But what might you think might be a good article that maybe Conservative Home might be publishing this time of year? Well, have we got a real humdinger of a of one for you, where Sarah Ingham, a writer who has written a couple of times, in fact, we've covered her before. She wrote a book called The Covenant Between the Military and what was it now? Yes, the Military Covenant in its impact on civil and military relations in Britain. I couldn't think of a worse named book to begin. I don't even know where you would begin to describe this. It's generally kind of weird, but then again, we've covered Sarah Ingham before. I don't know if you remember when we happened to sort of cover her. But no, she has 12 tips for despondent conservatives, saying, don't worry, things may be bad, but I've got 12 helpful tips for any truly despondent conservatives that will lift your conservative spirits at this time of year. This is going to be fun. I know what's coming. I already know what 12 things she's going to say, but you don't. So, oh boy. So without further ado, before we do get into this, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button if you are new to the channel. Of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page, the one after link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can buy me coffee. There is the YouTube thank you button as well. And of course, there is the Pony Club as well. You can join as well. And of course, remember, tomorrow we will be doing the last Pony Club as well of the year. It will be our big review of the year. So if you are on the Patreon or I can say you are the Pony Club, one of the Pony Club members, you will gain access to that. So if you want to sort of come and see that, you can join that for a month and etc. and help support the channel that way. Or you can always help support. Let me put my teeth in. You can always help support the channel by just clicking the like and share button as well. So, as always, thank you very much to all those people who do help and support the channel in whatever way you do help. But like I say, thank you very much for all the help and support you guys have shown for the channel throughout the year, because we have grown quite a bit this year. So it's been very good to see that. So, as always, let's crack on into this and see what these 12 tips are for despondent conservatives during this Festivus period. So, number 1, read the Downing Street years. So, what are the Downing Street years? The Downing Street years are basically Margaret Thatcher's memoirs. So there's no better time, apparently, to comfort yourself as a conservative than to reread the almost what would be, I suppose, be considered the Bible for many conservatives by rereading our patron saint Margaret Thatcher's timeless classical journal. Why not rethink, about the year that conservatives have had, and maybe rethink, are these ideas good, and are these ideas, winning us votes? We've said that we should be doing this or this, and we haven't done this, and maybe it's lost us votes. HS2 leveling up. We haven't really invested in this when we said we would do, and it's sort of, going to lose us the red wall. And no seeming point, of course, reflection, of course, on this. And then this one, is interesting. Reread A Christmas Carol, the story that says, hey, these rich people maybe should be, what, frightened or scared to death in order to sort of share their vast sums of money, which they have sort of hoarded all this time. Really, the Christmas Carol has quite a socialist undertone to it. And of course, one heavily of wealth redistribution. But of course, she doesn't take it like this. This is what her rereading of A Christmas Carol would be. She says, it is worth the time of any party strategist to contemplate negative campaigning. Ask who has more voter appeal, a cheerful nephew Fred or his mean-spirited Uncle Ebenezer Scrooge, and avoid speculating about what Dickens would have made of homelessness as a lifestyle choice. I suppose, when you look at A Christmas Carol, um, maybe the rich should help, poor people out in poor situations, like, how Ebenezer, Scrooge helped his clerk Bob Cratchit and his poor family. And of course, Tiny Tim, who, let's face it, in the Victorian era, would probably not have really survived. And even if he had grown to adulthood, would have faced huge challenges in the Victorian era. And especially if he didn't have, as apparently we are want to know from A Christmas Carol, the support and the financial backing of Ebenezer Scrooge. And maybe instead of just Ebenezer Scrooge, maybe he should have been, taxed more efficiently so that, we could put money into sort of, social programs to help, poor disadvantaged families like, Bob Cratchit's, of who probably joining something like a union would have helped him to fight back against his boss, Ebenezer Scrooge, and many of course, the clerks that also worked for Ebenezer Scrooge, and of course, would have helped, Bob's Cratchit's family in their time of need, or help to relieve some of the strain that this family would have had for raising such a disabled child, like that would have brought, the state would have, helped at that time. Yeah, reread A Christmas Carol. While I do openly encourage it, it's a very good book. I, I suppose it tells you, you know, who's more, voter appeal, his cheerful nephew Fred or Ebenezer Scrooge. Well, what happened to Ebenezer Scrooge, and how did he turn from being that mean-spirited quote uncle throughout the book, and the transformation that he made? Again, we're getting caught up on sort of the Christmas Carol, but I'm sort of fascinated to read almost what would be an insight of a conservative reading of the Christmas Carol. Yeah, that's kind of the insight and fascination I now sort of want to know, but would also be at the same time horrified to read. But anyway, on to number 3. Watching EVs explode. How about, the EVs that are, quote, exploding are not the Nissan ones or, the Toyota ones. It tends to be Tesla that are especially the ones that are have, how shall we say, having an explosive problem to a point where they are going to, Tesla's new model is probably going to be banned in Europe because it can't pass its safety tests. Um, Perhaps then, as we are soon to be seeing, that we are meant to be going towards this bright EV future of many of our, green Tories who want to go in this direction as well, then perhaps maybe the point really should be, let's look at how we can, improve these EVs through things like regulation to make sure that they do pass their safety standards. And if they don't, well, you know, Just saying, there's a lot of ideas that you could do. Um, 4, banish the board game boredom. And then this is just very, very odd. By saying that they should instead be playing the Quanganocracy and become a non-exec on a board of a monopoly utility company or its regulatory authority, then amass bonuses and gongs before the odor hits the fan or ends up in the waterways. Bear in mind, that's your government that has been allowing that to happen. If you are against that, why have you not done something about that? And bear in mind, you've been in power for over 13 years. And at some point during those 13 years, you've had a quite sizable majority, especially after 2019, to be able to do that. Play buzzword bingo. Number 6, gender bend your presence. Yes, of course. If the culture wars still haven't proven to be effective, and you still can't seem to sort of find a purchase for them in British politics, just keep on doing it anyway, even though it is shown that they aren't effective, and the British public isn't, shall we say, overly well receiving to many of these culture war arguments. Number 7, watch the COVID inquiry. I'd heavily endorse that because the COVID inquiry has been um, one of, we saw everything that went on. We all had heard the stories and suspected of what had been going on. And all the COVID inquiry is doing is merely confirming all of that chaos. And in fact, it was actually 10 times worse in some cases than we had ever even thought. So, number 8, get crafty. Sure, why not? uh, oh, pardon me. 9, the who's out. Never mind the who's who. Compile your very own who's out. List those MPs who should be asking themselves if, like Pride and Prejudice, pianoforte playing Matt Penty, that they have not delighted us long enough, and then retire. From former prime ministers should stop perhaps doing a Heath and instead emulate the public spirited example being set by Lord Cameron. Oh yeah, um, gee, maybe MPs who are about to lose their seat should be envying the fact that Lord Cameron, who is not an MP, who is not going to lose their seat next year, who will not have to re-engage in an election campaign because he doesn't have a seat to hold. He's fine. He's set up for life in the House of Lords. Yes, someone clearly to emulate. Right. 10. Avoid pressing the fuck it button. Um, this one again, bizarre. A tip for our friends in recovery from addiction. At this time of year, triggering events, family reunions, the Rwanda bill, can bring to the surface very latent emotional distress, leading to destructive urges. Mediation helps. Focus on the mantra "party before self." Wow. um, Yeah, the Conservative Party has not been doing that. In fact, it has chosen the exact opposite to do that for a number of years, even before 2016. So, yeah, this whole idea of, peace to this, peace to that, doesn't look like that's going to work. Anyway, number 11, party hats off to Rishi. Let's see what she's had to say about this, praising the dear leader, who's had an absolutely awful year. So, clearly, he works some magic on Ursula, dear Rishi von der Leyen, and of course, Italy's Giorgiani love burst Maloney. yeah, hardly, should we say, was that good going, rubbing shoulders with, Italy's, far right party, with links to, Mussolini being, of course, his great granddaughter. Yeah, that really looks good. That, but Rishi Sunak is Sauron Voldemort for many middle-aged men in the media. He has steadied the national economic ship and won the confidence of international financial markets. No, he really hasn't. Um, Rishi Sunak said he was going to get inflation under control, but what did Rishi Sunak actually do to get inflation under control? He didn't really do anything. Not only has inflation continued to seesaw back and forth continuously, but many economic experts are now predicting that the UK does look set to go, into a recession, which is not going to be good. Has Rishi Sunak succeeded in growing the economy? No, he hasn't. The Edinburgh reforms, the Big Bang 2.0, as it was meant to be hailed, has unilaterally been hailed as an absolute failure only a year after they've been announced. To say that he has, quote, steadied the national economic ship and restored the faith of international financial markets, no, he's done it by essentially just doing nothing. But this, of course, is less a feat than the flop for carpeting commentators. Again, he's done nothing. He's done nothing. The idea that he has succeeded in that, he's done nothing. Anyway, they give the impression that Labour's victory is in the bag thanks to Sir Keir, who has yet to design any share of policies or costings with the little people, i.e., the voters and taxpayers, as is the focus of his recent fanboy, Dom would say, Frit. Here's the thing: he has talked openly about policies. They have talked about costings, and by the way, this is something I've thought about talking about. We might do this in the next video. But this has been obviously the traditional point and the danger point where should we say, previous conservative administrations who have been in trouble when Labour puts out a policy, they immediately don't focus on the policy. They go after what the tax is going to be, what the cost is to the taxpayer. And unfortunately, every single time Labour has fallen into that trap, and the Conservatives have made hay. It has been a historic tactic that the Conservatives have used time and time again, and yet it has worked. And so far, Keir Starmer has avoided falling into that trap. Now, eventually, he will have to put out a manifesto. And that's when, he will have to really go to town on the Conservatives to explain to the British people, this is how, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to do when we're in power. This is how it's going to be, good for the British people, for you who are going to vote for this. This is how we're going to help. And of course, we will fight a general election battle. And of course, we may be 20 points ahead now, but remember, Boris Johnson, when he came in, was 19. The Conservative Party was 19 points behind in those particular polls. So a general election can always be a very, very dangerous beast. And I would say, again, if you've listened to the fantastic interview that Rory Stewart and Alistair Campbell did with Angela Rayner, she said, if we win, they are sort of confident that they can do, but they are not going to take that victory, that they are going to go into victory for granted, which, to be honest, her hearing that being said is very, very good. I think that's very, very relieving for me, at least. But, of course, finally, number 12, be grateful for peace. We're not in Ukraine, Israel, or Gaza, even if there could be a bit more goodwill about. And that's all you've got to say for that. Not how, maybe how we could, help Ukraine so that they could have a peaceful Christmas next year, or maybe put more international pressure on Israel to make sure, that we can maybe sort of end the current conflict that's going on in Gaza and to help bring about a permanent peace in the region. Just again, just an idea, guys. But those are the 12 seasonal tips for despondent conservatives. They're a bit weird if you ask me, but yeah, let me know what you think down below on that. And I really don't want to look it up, but I'm very tempted to see if there is a conservative reading or what conservatives would take if they were to read A Christmas Carol and what they would take away from that, bringing it through a conservative mindset. Anyway, as always, thank you very much, of course, for watching. And of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.